When you do a song that goes along with all that as the background called Heil Hitler, I don't care how arch you think you're being or what smart-ass point you think you're making. The truth is, you are being anti-Semitic and you know it.
I think that we're blasting this anti-Semitism out of control to a certain degree. Everything that is negative towards Jews isn't always, in some cases, intended to be
come on. Sorry, I don't know if he quacks like an anti-Semite, he walks like an anti-Semite, and he spends all day, every day, spewing hateful abuse like an anti-Semite. He probably is an anti-Semite.
Well, look who's back at it again. Piers Uncensored Morgan. Doing everything except keeping it uncensored. This man's obsession with Kanye, aka Ye, is starting to feel less like journalism and more like a bitter ex who got walked out on live in front of millions. Piers is out here crying about Ye's Heil Hitler, his new track, for being anti-Semitic while somehow forgetting his own show title Uncensored. Ironic, right? That's an understatement. Stick with me here, because let's get one thing straight. If offensive lyrics is a crime, then mainstream rap has been a war zone for decades. But Piers doesn't care about that. He's laser focused on Ye. Not because of morality, but because of Ye's embarrassment on his own show. And now he's assembled his Avengers of Outcry to cry foul over a song that nobody can even find online anymore thanks to mass censorship, especially the lyrics. They say Ye's dangerous because people might follow him. Meanwhile, Israel drops bombs on Gaza like it's confetti, but that's not incitement? That's not dangerous? If Ye's music is anti-Semitism, then what do we call a government dropping white phosphorus on children while silencing critics with the same anti-Semitism label? Piers, if anyone is normalizing hatred, it's the one shielding war crimes with identity politics, not a rapper spiraling on a beat. But let's be real, Ye isn't fighting the Jews necessarily, he's fighting the Matrix as he mentioned at the beginning of his song. And Piers, he's the algorithm lapdog. Let's go.
And then we have Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, and woe betide anyone who doesn't get his new name right. He used his free speech right to insult me and walk out of our interview after 3 minutes because I had the audacity to call him Ye West, even though his ex-handle name is at Kanye West.
Sir, this is what you get for now. We can circle back when you can count.
Okay. Now, I get accused of hypocrisy for calling on Elon Musk, who owns X, to ban Ye from X over his anti-Semitic tirades, which he posts under the handle, as I say, at Kanye West. But the First Amendment doesn't give you the right to offend millions of people on a private social media platform. That is a matter of choice for the platform. And I choose to argue that people shouldn't have to see it. Many people have the same view of his new single. It's currently doing a roaring trade on X, but has been swiftly banned by major platforms like Spotify and Apple.
Man, these people took my kids from me, then they froze my bank account. I got so much anger in me, got no way to take it out.
So this is the new song, which is entitled Heil Hitler. And at various points of the song, he chants Heil Hitler. Now, some who rush to defend everything he does say that, yeah, he's making a really arch-clever point. And I'll come to Michael Knowles, a familiar friend of this show, who makes that point in a moment. I've got to say that before I get to what Michael said, my own view is that he's doing this deliberately to propagate anti-Semitism. He, for many, many months now, if not several years, has, to his 33 million followers, as he proudly boasted on this show on X, he uses it to air what are blatantly pro-Hitler, pro-Nazi, anti-Jew sentiments. And that breaks every rule that X has, for example, on its own platform, which is why millions of accounts get suspended every year for far less, in many cases, than what Ye has been doing. And I don't think he should be allowed to amplify these hateful, often violent in their rhetoric, abusive terms towards particularly Jewish people, where he talks about them, the need to make them slaves, the need to whip them, and so on. It's outrageous. It shouldn't be happening. And when you do a song that goes along with all that as the background called Heil Hitler, I don't care how arch you think you're being or what smart-ass point you think you're making. The truth is, you are being anti-Semitic and you know it. And you just want a bunch of people running around chanting Heil Hitler. Well, my panel includes the host of the Officer Tatum channel, Brandon Tatum, the host of Human Events, Jack Pacific, the cultural commentator, Kaizen Asidu, and the host of Pushing the Limits, Brian Shapiro. Well, welcome to all of you. I just want to play what Michael Knowles said, because I really respect Michael Knowles. And he had a very nuanced take on this, which I think is quite interesting.
Seems to me that the introduction to the song actually sets that up. Because he's saying, I'm not in my right mind. I'm not thinking logically. I'm just full of anger and wrath and sin and vice. And I'm the villain. So, Heil Hitler, I'm a Nazi. I became a Nazi. I'm the villain. Right there off the top. He's not saying Hitler is good. That's how this is going to be reported in the press. That is how Nazis are going to take it. And that is how the Kanye haters are going to take it. But it's not what he's saying. Right there off the top, he's saying, I'm bad. I'm doing bad things. I'm not being smart. I'm not being logical. I'm not making any sense. I'm bad. I'm a villain. That's why I'm a Nazi. In other words, the Nazis are the bad guys. And Hitler's the bad guy. And I'm the bad guy.
Okay, so Brandon Taylor, welcome back to Uncensored. I get the point that Michael's making, but I think he's being way too generous and probably a little bit wrong, I think, in the context of the chronology here, because one of the reasons that he's not allowed to see his kids so much is precisely because of all the anti-Semitic bullshit he was spewing before Kim Kardashian, the mother of his kids, decided it was just crossing a line which made it unsafe for the kids to be around him. So there's a chronology issue there, never mind anything else. But I also don't think that is really what Ye's motivation is. But what do you think?
Well, I'll say this. I don't think Ye's motivation is to be anti-Semitic. I
Really?
think he's a mentally ill individual. And when somebody's mentally ill, you don't listen to what they say. He's trying to do anything that he can to get attention. And I agree with Michael Knowles that he's trying to articulate his frustration, which I don't agree with his frustration. I think he shouldn't see his kids. I think he's absolutely out of his mind. I think he says hurtful and evil things that can make people believe that he's anti-Semitic. Maybe he is, but I don't think this song specifically is alluding to the fact that he wants to support Hitler. I do think he's artistically explaining his frustration, which I don't agree with, but that's just what it is. I think that we're blasting this anti-Semitism out of control to a certain degree. Everything that is negative towards Jews isn't always, in some cases, intended to be
come on.
anti-Semitic.
Sorry, Brandon, hang on. I don't disagree with you about people often go from, 0 to 100 very quickly and branding people racist and so on and anti-Semitic and so on. That's not what we're dealing with here. This guy has spent sometimes, 10 hours on X spewing anti-Jewish sentiment. I see it all the time.
Piers, you could be that could also be true. Like, I don't follow
Well, it
him
is
a lot.
true. We
Some
read
of the
it.
things he No, I'm saying some of the things he can say can be anti-Semitic. I'm talking specifically about this song. I don't think the intention of this song specifically
but I don't
was
think you can divorce. Let me go to Brian now. Brian, I don't think you can divorce the history of what he's been spewing publicly to 32, 33 million people on an almost minute-by-minute basis, which has contained absolutely shocking abuse of Jewish people and perpetuating every stereotype imaginable that you'd associate with anti-Semitism. I don't think you can just say, well, none of that really matters. We should judge Heil Hitler on its own. The whole point is, this is a natural extension of everything he's doing, is to do a song called Heil Hitler.
Right. I can't believe what I'm hearing, Piers, from Brandon, that somehow Heil Hitler in a song isn't anti-Semitic. By the way, this is the same guy who sold swastika T-shirts the week his album came out. Is he mentally disturbed? Yes. I totally disagree with Michael Knowles. Just because somebody thinks they're the villain or they're doing bad doesn't make it okay. And by the way, this is about money, okay? He gets in the news and he says ridiculous things, anti-Semitic or otherwise, to try to sell albums and be in the news. Yes, is he mentally ill? Sure, but here's what makes him even more dangerous. He has one of the biggest platforms on the planet, millions of followers. When he says anti-Semitic things, and that's exactly what they are, it's dangerous because everyday people that are cult followers that follow him will start to buy into it. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who happens to be African American a few weeks ago. He has become anti-Semitic because he's a huge Kanye West fan. Now, I'm talking with him, I'm trying to work with him, but because some people in society are huge Kanye West fans, they listen to his music, but they also buy his swastika T-shirts. That can also incite violence. This is absolutely anti-Semitic, Brandon, and you can't deny that.
You know what? I'll go back to Brandon quickly for a response, but honestly, I don't know if he quacks like an anti-Semite, he walks like an anti-Semite, and he spends all day, every day, spewing hateful abuse like an anti-Semite, he probably is an anti-Semite.
Well, Pierce, and I'll say this again, maybe what I said was misconstrued. I don't deny that he's anti-Semitic. I don't deny that he said hurtful and evil things about the Jews, which I disagree. I'm probably the biggest Jewish supporter on this panel. But what I'm saying is that when you look at the song, I'm articulating clearly that I don't think that was his intent initially by saying Heil Hitler. He did have an articulable point of why he was upset. He was comparing himself to Hitler. I don't think it's a direct connection, but I do think it's wrong. I do think it's dumb. I do think it's stupid to make a song like that. That's like saying that you're going to make a song to prove a point.
But the thing is,
supporting a pedophile.
Right, I mean, I'm going to bring
at some point you're not going to get your point across.
Okay, I'm going to bring Kaizen in here. You see, I don't just think it's wrong or dumb or any of those things. I think it's absolutely dangerous in the way that Brian just articulated. We saw Dave Portnoy come out and say that, you know, he'd been in, I think, some restaurant and people had put some, it was a bar, I think, some vile stuff on there attacking Jews. And he said he'd worked out it was a direct result of stuff that Kanye West had been saying. There's a direct correlation there, direct pathway between a very, very, very popular, very famous rap superstar, iconic person with 33 million followers, one of the biggest followings in the world. If you keep spewing this hateful stuff at Jewish people long enough, some of your supporters are going to take it on board and do stuff. It is dangerous. You are inciting racial hatred. And I can't think of a purer personification of anti-Semitism, can you?
Well, it's clear that what Kanye is doing is anti-Semitic, right? Because anti-Semitism is literally hatred directed toward Jews, and that's what's being done, whether that's his intention or not. But I think the more interesting question is, where is this anti-Semitism coming from more generally, and why is the stuff that he's saying resonating at all? Because if we don't address that higher level question, then Jewish people are not going to be helped by us just wagging our finger. We need to actually figure out what is the root cause of this, and like, how do we nip this at the bud? Now, I think that what's happening in this country with anti-Semitism is a lot of the time it's getting conflated with criticism of the actions of the Israeli government, which is not fair. I think what would be more accurate to say is there is a subset of people who are critical of the Israeli government who are genuine anti-Semites. There's also a subset of that audience who is not anti-Semitic and just has concerns about how the Israeli government is prosecuting their actions in Gaza. So what's happening is, in an effort to quell anti-Semitism, there's actually recasting the entire group as anti-Semitic, which I don't think is accurate or fair. And I think Kanye, yes, there's some easily influenced young minds who hear Kanye and are becoming anti-Semites, but I think he's also revealing some rot in the culture that needs to be addressed.
Well, he is,
and
except that, I don't disagree with you that there is that danger that people conflate different things. And that, you know, you should obviously be able to criticize the Israeli government, not least right now. No one's been more critical of them recently than me. I think they're going way too far. There's no end game in sight. They haven't got all the hostages back. They haven't defeated Hamas. I don't know what the hell they're doing there, but I just feel like, you know, it's absolutely not just right. It's a duty of people to hold the Israeli government to account for what's happening there now. And that's not anti-Semitic to say that. It is if you preface your criticism by saying, I really hate the Jews, and this is why, right? So it's how you do that criticism. It's how you frame criticism.
And there you have it, Piers Morgan, the gatekeeper of free speech as long as it fits his script. The man talks about dangerous rhetoric while spewing his own, framing anyone who even dares to breathe sideways about Israel as a raging anti-Semite. First it was Andrew Tate, now it's Ye. Who's next? Your Uber driver for playing Arab music? Let's not pretend this is about ethics. It's about total control. Piers isn't here to debate, he's here to demonize, and Ye, he just happens to be the latest black man with too much influence and too little obedience. Suddenly, mental health isn't a concern. Nuance doesn't matter, and uncensored means permanently censored unless you're parroting his narrative. Oh, and spares the Think of the Children Act, Piers. You weren't worried about public safety when British tabloids were hijacking voicemails and destroying lives. But now Ye drops a satirical bar, and suddenly it's DEFCON 1 for the Jewish community. Give me a break. Maybe it's not Kanye who's obsessed with Hitler. Maybe it's Piers. He just found a convenient way to scream it on TV every night for clicks. So the next time Piers tries to shame someone for spreading hate, ask yourself, Is he really fighting hate or just defending the one group that lets him keep his job? If you're tired of mainstream hypocrites preaching freedom while silencing truth, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to any platform where we don't bow to the algorithm gods. This is Z. Catch you all on the next one.